Well, hello, Lori. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul.
I am very excited to learn more about you and cutting edge metals today. So, would love to have you start by introducing yourself and your company. Uh, Tell us a bit of your background before you founded Cutting Edge Metals, and then just what the company looks like today, and a little bit of the history, and then we'll dig more into specifics after you give us
Per-
the highlights.
Perfect. Sounds good. So Paul, I just started Cutting Edge Metals. It was just a year ago, as a matter of fact, this last Tuesday on the 11th.
Oh,
So 1 year,
congratulations!
yeah, thank you. 1 year in business. It's Cutting Edge Metals. We are a CNC machine shop out here in beautiful wine country in McMinnville, Oregon.
Hmm.
We chose McMinnville because the economic development groups here are absolutely phenomenal, supportive, just a great community, great support system here. My background is I've
Awesome.
been in manufacturing for over 30 years, starting out
Hmm.
working on production lines, just straight out of high school. Instead of going to college, I went and got a job through a temp agency at an injection molding plant. And then as I continued to grow in my journey in manufacturing, along the way, figured out that I kept on getting promoted into these leadership positions. And I was definitely in over my head. And so then I went and started putting myself through college and, putting myself through college while raising three kids and, being a wife and a family. It was tough on my family, a lot tougher on them
Hmm.
than I think it was on me. But at the end of the day, I ended up with a master's in business. So have a couple of business degrees now. And the last 10 years, I've been in the CNC machining world.
Hmm.
And the previous 7 of them, I was actually a general manager slash president of a machine shop that was here in Oregon. And
Okay.
surviving the pandemic and still
Yes.
being able to put profit to the bottom line and retain the employees that we wanted to retain. We were able to thin some of the folks that we needed to move away from. So it was a great
Hmm.
opportunity. It really helped me build my confidence that, hey, I can do this. And so
Hmm.
in 2011, in November, I sat down and met with the city of McMinnville and chatted with them about, hey, I want to start a business in McMinnville. And
Hmm.
we are thinking about doing a brewery or a truck driving school or
Oh,
a
wow.
CNC machine shop. We didn't know which, and I had business plans written for the truck driving school and for the brewery, but not the CNC machine shop. Um,
Okay.
and I went to my day job after my meeting with the city that day, and I had my stuff packed for a year. I was not super happy where I was at, but I was staying to take care of the employees and to take care of the
Hmm.
customers and the suppliers because those are where my core values, my personal core values, laid or
Hmm.
were laying. And
Sure.
and so I walked in the door, and they handed me my final check, which was wonderful for me. It was the best thing in my world that ever happened to me because it forced my hand. And so on my drive
Right.
home, within minutes of being in my car, my phone was blowing up. Customers and suppliers and employees were calling me and saying, what's next? And so I said, I'm going to open my own shop. And so that's where it all
Very
started.
cool.
It could have been a tough day, but it was the best day of my life. Paul, I danced out of there. I mean, I had already had my stuff packed for a year. And so I literally had one little bag in my purse and a plant, and I danced out of there. I was super excited. So,
Wow.
and the reason why they parted ways with me is, honestly, is because I was starting to ask things for the employees. Hey, we made it through the pandemic. Hey, we didn't give anybody raises for 2 years. Now we need to start taking care of our employees. And they didn't want to move forward with that. And since I was starting to ask them
Hmm.
tough questions, the owners tough questions, they chose to move away from me. And my message at the Women in Aerospace conference was get out there, take a chance. It's okay
Hmm.
if things go sideways. They don't go expect the unexpected and accept the unexpected. So whatever happens, just go with it and take it and make lemonade out of lemons. So that was my message at Women in Aerospace. So that's how we got started. That's how cutting edge metals came to life. My business plan was to be making chips by June of this year. And we had the equipment moved into the building by June of last year, making chips by August, and delivering customer product by September. So we were almost a year ahead of schedule.
You're straight into it. That's fantastic. What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. And just for context for the listeners, some of the ladies on our team saw you speak at the Women in Aerospace conference that the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance puts on every year, and hence that's how we got introduced to each other. So sounds like it was an inspirational speech. I'm sorry I missed it. And just a point of clarity, you said you talked to McMinnville in 2011, but I think you meant 2021. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, 2021. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So it was just, you were right into it. Okay, perfect. So what, I'd love to go back and talk a little bit about the reason that you were advocating for the employees and why that wasn't in alignment with your past company and sort of the core values. You mentioned core values. That's a theme that comes up on this show almost every time. So clearly they're important because I imagine that informs how you are running your company today and how you envision building it into the future. So yeah, I'd love to have you share some of that.
Yeah, actually, when the day that we decided we were going to do the shop, the first thing that my husband and I did is we sat down and we wrote out our core values. Those were the first 4 statements that were on our business plan. And they are safety, integrity, excellence, and my favorite is honesty. Because honesty is our moral compass. And we go back and talk about honesty every day. Yet I have a perfect example. Yesterday, a gentleman by the name of Doug called and said, "Hey, I need to have my engine block bored and honed." And he's like, is this, and he left me a voicemail. He's like, "Is this your type of business? Is this what you do? If not, don't call me back." But my core values don't allow me to not at least give him a call back and say, "Hey, Doug, appreciate the call. It's not what we do. Maybe you can try this other machine shop that's out in Oregon City. I know a mechanic that uses them and they have been great for him." And so that's part of my core values is that moral compass, making sure that we are vulnerable, that we don't make our decisions on pride and ego, that we have integrity, we follow through, and communication. And it is definitely something that every day something about our core values come up and we make a business decision on it, big or small. And our conversations are about our core values. That's how
Wonderful.
They came up. That's how they were created.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You did that first thing. I think that's super insightful. And as I said, the core values comes up almost every single time on this show. And, most of my guests are fairly mature companies that have been around for many, many years. And so the fact that they are, also are rooted in their core values and it's serving them well, that they're, very successful shops, I think is just a testament to how important it is to have a really impeccable reputation in the industry because it's a small industry. And that comes from having really solid values that you can always, treat clients and customers and vendors and your employees with. So that's awesome. And I imagine that you felt like that was not in alignment with where you were before, and it was, and wanting to have that as a part of your what you were doing. Sounds like that was important to you.
Yeah, very, very much so. In my years of manufacturing, and also like when I went to PNAA conference, the Women in Aerospace, and I've been to some, PNDC, some Pacific Northwest Defense Coalition supplier conferences, there's a common theme and a common message out there, which is the pain point is customers don't get the communication that they need. They have an order with a supplier And 2-3 days after the product is supposed to be due on their dock and it's not there, they're having to call the supplier and say, hey, where's my stuff? Only to find out that, oh, we had a hiccup and we're not going to have it for another week or 3 days or 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. And that's one place where we are very much different, is dependent upon the level of communication that the customer wants. I will send them text messages daily if they want that, or email updates at least once a week. If they don't ask, we have a process in place that even if they don't ask, we're going to touch base with them along the way during the journey of their order, just to say, hey, just want to give you a heads up. Everything's running to be, on your dock on time or ahead of schedule. And since we started, we've had one late order, and it was 3 days late. And the customer knew a week and a half in advance that we were going to be late. And that's, out of all of the business that we've done in a year, we've had one late order, just because we follow through with our commitments and we communicate along the way, mitigate the risk up front.
That sounds like a recipe for success right there. So you mentioned process. You have a process for delivering news about late orders. Can you talk about that process and how you're thinking about building business process at such a relatively sort of young age in the shop? A lot of shops I don't think about formal processes when they're a year old. So I'd love to have you share more about that.
Yeah, I'm in a very fortunate situation because my staff that I have is very familiar with AS 9100. And so just out of the gate, literally right out of the beginning of the first order, we have a system where we have job travelers on the floor. They have all of the work instructions on them. Our system was AS 9100 compliant even before I wrote all of the policies and procedures to meet the AS 9100 requirements. We were starting to track metrics and have our management review meetings before I had our entire QMS absolutely, in place. And then we've already had our stage 1 audit for AS 9100, passed it with flying colors. As a matter of fact, they typically don't schedule the stage 2 audit for several months after stage 1, because typically companies have to go in and fine tune things and fix things. We scheduled mine for like 7-8 weeks later. It's the first week of September. So we'll have stage 2. We flew through stage 1 with flying colors. It's because our staff knows that they know how to work it. So everything that we do is with a process. And then I've also, I am Lean and Six Sigma trained. I have a black belt in Six Sigma. And so even though I don't raise the flag and fly the banners for it, when we look at processes, we look at things for, do we have waste here? Do we have a better way to do these things? And that's just innate in our system and in the team that we have, because every one of our team members have worked with me for a lot of years in the industry. And so they know how I think. And the good news is there's still a lot of team members out there as we grow that want to be a part of our business as well. So, we are in our incubator location. We're small right now, but I can assure you that in 3 years, we will outgrow the building that we're in and be looking to transition and move into a larger building. We'll keep this one for a period of time. Risk mitigation again, right? You have to look at everything from risk and make sure that we don't disrupt our business and our service to our customers along the way.
It's all music to my ears. Well, that is, I think, super insightful about process and lean and looking for waste. In my opinion, that'll serve you well for a very, very long time, and it seems pretty forward thinking compared to what I often see. When did you get that lean, that sort of Six Sigma training just along the way, or did you seek that out? And then I also want to ask, where did your employees get their AS 9100 experience? Did you happen to just hire someone that knew it, or did they? I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
So as far as the employees, my current staff has worked side by side with me previously. And in our previous company, we were AS 9100
Mhm.
certified. And
Okay.
so, and it was one of those things where when I was the leader of that company, I am very quality minded. Quality is a mindset in my mind.
Yep.
And it has to start from the top down. And if you don't have it from the top of your company, then you won't have quality in your system. And since I was the leader of the company, definitely quality flowed down to everybody. And I wanted everybody to understand what quality was. It wasn't just, hooking up a pair of calipers and micrometers and measuring a part and making sure it was good. There was a lot more to it. And so we did quite a bit of training. So that's how my staff learned, is just by being around me for the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
Your sort of Six Sigma training, lean training.
Yeah. So Six Sigma training and lean training. The Six Sigma training I received in down at the Peterbilt facility down in Denton, Texas. And
Okay.
it was a program where the company that I was working for at the time was a vacuum forming company, and they were a supplier to Peterbilt. And it was just required that they send one employee a year to that training. And I happened to be selected to go down to the training. And it was a 4-month program where we would go down for a week, do our classroom stuff for a week, and then we would come back and have a month to do our projects, and then go back and do another week with the training. So the total training was actually about 5 months, 4.5, 5 months.
Nice. What a
And
great
then,
experience.
yeah, and then lean, I was working at a machine shop, CNC machine shop in the medical industry, and was offered to go to Ogden, Utah to the auto leave lean training program. And that was phenomenal. That was just music to my ears. And even though that auto leave is a high, low mix, high product volume shop, which obviously I'm not that, but there was still a lot of things that could be brought over to a job shop or to a CNC machine shop. And it was great training, and that has definitely stuck with me, and something that I really enjoy.
And how do you get that those principles sort of throughout the company and getting your team to embrace them as well?
So that is an interesting question. For us, because I don't run around and fly any, hey, we're going to do a 5S program, or I don't fly any banners. It's just about communication. I'll look at something, and if I see something where, hey, they're taking too many steps, or there's a little bit of waste there, is there a way that we can make that process better? I will go up and chat with the folks on the floor and just say, hey, what do you think that we can do to make this better? Can we make this job easier for you? Is there something? And so that's the big thing, is to listen to the staff. They're the ones that are out there and in it. And they, if they can make their job easier or less time consuming, then they understand it, that it's going to benefit them, which is going to benefit it's going to benefit the company, which in turn is going to benefit them again. So that's how I have always infused lean and problem solving and root cause analysis into our system, is just by engaging the employees and having them be a part of it.
Excellent. Yeah, I know in a lot of shops, getting buy-in to lean can be an uphill battle. It's a bit of a struggle. And I think that's often due to the leadership not approaching it in the right way. And people can perceive it as sort of initiative of the month kind of thing. And then, it'll pass. But when you really sort of bring it to them and make sure that they understand the impact, and drive, and basically understand the core principles of why it's so important and how it'll impact them and their job and the performance of the company, and they're all bought into that. It's got to be a much easier task than if it's just, here's something we're doing, this month. So that's fantastic.
I was fortunate along the way when I was working at Clear Systems, because I was there for about 7 years. I cut my teeth really on my Six Sigma there. We had it was a production line where we were running about 10,000 optics a month out of there. And I was fortunate because the first pass yield was like 36% and the on-time delivery was at 72%. And they were losing money hand over fist, and all the employees were working major overtime just to try and barely keep up with the customer demand. And it was a mess. And I was fortunate in the respect that the engineers had a tough time figuring out why they were having problems with their first pass yields. And I was able to go in with a Six Sigma project. I didn't say it was a Six Sigma project at all. I just pulled in my team, and we just started going through the DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control process. And we were doing it together, and they didn't really know what we were doing. I just kept on pulling them into meetings and walking them through it and spoon feeding it. And when we were done with the project, our first pass yield was now at 97%, and our on-time delivery was at 100%, and it was an annual savings of $1.2 million. And so then I took all of that stuff and I put it into a spiral bound notebook and printed it and put pictures that I had taken along the way. And then I handed it to them and said, hey, you guys just did a Six Sigma project. And they all went, wow, we want to do more of those. So that is, and I'm not trying to be sneaky. I'm just trying to say, hey, there's things that we can do that will make jobs easier, put more money to the bottom line, which is profit sharing for you. And that's, and it also helps the employees, because the employees don't come to work to do a bad job.
Oh, no.
I don't know one employee that has ever come to work and said, I'm going to mess things up today. It's not what they want to do. So whatever I can do to help them, go home feeling fulfilled for the day is super helpful.
I love that perspective, and I completely agree. I think in general, people do the best they can given the knowledge they have and the skills and the tools and the situation. And if you can help them improve those, that'll make them even happier because they genuinely want to do a great job. So that's awesome. I want to pivot a little bit and learn about how you just the startup of your business. How did you fund it? Did you get loans? There's a lot of companies out there, a lot of people that want to start a shop, but they're not quite sure what steps they should take. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you actually went through the steps of incorporating it and starting it and funding it and finding a place and all those kind of things.
Yes. So as far as the funding, I just lost video for a second.
No, you're good.
Okay. As far as the funding is concerned, I'm bootstrapping it. I self-funded. I did do one loan for one piece of equipment, and it is my mass finishing tumbling system. Okay. I've wanted one of those for a decade. I know how efficient they are. And I know that that's something that I get to run because it's so easy. We have parts coming off of the machine out there. I set it up, set it and forget it, run the parts. I come back into the office and continue working what I'm doing. And it sings to me and says, hey, get out here and change me out. Takes me 10 minutes. I go out there, I do that. And then I come back in and work in the office. So, it's super easy. It's awesome. Great finishing machine. Okay. So that's the only thing I funded or that I get a loan.
A lease or a loan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but everything else was self-funded. I am rolling the dice, and my retirement wasn't doing well, and so I'm rolling the dice with it. I'm believing in myself that I'm going to be able to turn that into something for the future for my family.
Right. Well, I think that's a good bet to make. So from what I can hear so far, so good for you. And what did you start with for equipment besides that mass finishing machine?
So I bought 2 used pieces of equipment. I bought, actually 3. I also got a cold saw with it, but I bought a Doosan horizontal, an 06 Doosan horizontal, and then a 2003 Okuma with a 4th axis. Okay. And so, realistically, we have been making parts that somebody would say, oh, that can only be done on a 5-axis machine or a 2x3. But because we've got the 4th and we've got the horizontal, we can do just about anything that a 3x2 5-axis machine can do with
Sure.
fixturing.
With creative fixturing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like solid choices. Most people don't start out with a horizontal, so yeah, good for you. That's very cool. And besides aerospace, sounds like you're targeting that with your AS9100. What other industries are you targeting, and how have you gone about, business development in the first year?
Yeah, that's been the interesting thing. So the customers that I currently have are customers that followed me.
Okay.
Well, most of them have followed me. I do have a couple of new customers that are local folks here, or Cascade Steel, Schnitzer Steel, and have come over to me and said, "Help! I need this part. We're lying down. Can you help us?" And so I managed to get into their database by just helping them get out of a bind. But I have a lot of industry contacts from being in manufacturing for 30 years. A lot of the folks that I have worked with along the way that were executives at former companies have gone out and started their own companies. One of them is in defense. And
Okay.
so that I've been able to help do business with them as well. And then I also have been working with, I'm going to give her a little bit of a plug, but 2001 Machining, Phyllis Goldberg. She is phenomenal, and she has helped turn us on to a few new customers as well. And I've just only been working with her for about a month and a half, and she is awesome.
And she's a sales rep, right?
Mm-hmm.
God, I remember Phyllis's name from, it must be 10, 15 years ago. I can't, yeah, I haven't thought of her in so long, but I definitely remember her back in my Pro CNC days. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I know that reps can be an amazing resource for some shops. So that's wonderful. It's been a win for you. I'd love to talk a little bit about metrics. Obviously, there's the basics that ISO or AS would require: on-time delivery, quality, things like that. Are there any other sort of more unique ones that you track and measure as part of your success?
From a business owner standpoint, they're not ones, I'm going to call them soft metrics, but there are some ratios that I'm looking at as far as like my cost of goods sold to my revenue, and my employee salaries and wages to my revenue. And so I have some percentages that I just keep in mind that I'm looking at. And I know that if I hit those targets as a ratio to my revenue, that it's going to impact my bottom line. And so, they're not things I'm going to give specifics on, but
Sure.
Those are some things that I track. And I'm actually, so my husband is in this endeavor with me. His background is in transportation. So he has 24 years in transportation and very little experience in manufacturing. But so I've been going over these things with him and helping him understand them. The other key thing that I think has been super important is I go back and visit my business plan and review it every 6 months.
Okay.
And update it every 6 months. So that to me is something that I haven't seen a lot of business owners do. It's not something that they really think about. And the reason why I feel that it's necessary is I can go back and say, oh my gosh, what didn't I know? Because there was so much that I didn't know that I didn't know when I started this endeavor.
Right.
And so going back and revisiting that business plan has been significant for me.
Can you share any of the things you didn't know that you then learned along the way?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I didn't know is how much power I needed.
Oh, okay.
That was a shocker to me. As far as the building, I'm in just a 2,000 square foot facility out here in Buns Village. And the city actually turned me onto it and said, hey, this is the incubator location. This is where Northwest UAV started. This is where rapid prototyping started. And they're all, fairly large shops now here in the McMinnville area. And I didn't realize that I didn't have enough power to the building. I thought, oh, okay, I've got 3-phase, 200 amps, and that should be plenty. Well, it might be plenty to run the machines, but it's not to code. And so that was a big thing, is I did have to put more power to the building.
Interesting. So you mentioned this incubator thing. Is it specifically like a business incubator that you're a part of?
Mm-mm.
No.
No,
Okay.
no, I call it an incubator.
Just it's where
Because
you're incubating the first year or two. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's where I'm getting my feet wet, and it's good that I am doing this here. I wasn't, expecting the economy to go the direction that it has gone in the last, well, since I started this journey in 2021. November of 2021 is when I wrote my business plan,
Hmm.
and things have definitely changed in the last couple of years.
Right.
And so the fact that we started out small is going to make it that we're going to plow right through this and get to the other side. And I don't have any concerns about that at all.
Okay. Um, you mentioned profit sharing before. Is that something that you are doing or planning on doing with your employees when you can?
Yeah, when we get to the point where we can,
Hmm.
we absolutely will be doing profit sharing. I have ratios and metrics, and I have a formula that I was using at
Yep.
my previous company that when I was the
Okay.
president,
Got
and
it.
it was based on quarterly metrics, and if we hit our metrics, we got profit sharing, and um, it was it was a really good way to incentivize people to, hey, the better that we do, the better that they're going to do. Especially in a
Yep.
time when we weren't able to give raises for a couple of years, it was a
Hmm.
really nice way to, help incentivize people to not employee retention, right? Employee retention is huge, especially in our industry where
Absolutely.
there aren't people that go through high school and say, hey, I want to become a machinist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say? I mean, you just outlined many good reasons, but specifically for a shop owner listening that is not doing it, what would you say is the reason they absolutely should do so? And maybe why it's financially beneficial to them to do so. See past just the straight dollars they're handing to an employee.
Yeah. So when I first started at the last place, we had a bonus system, and it was just every quarter we not every quarter. I'm sorry, once a year at Christmas time we would just give a bonus, and the employees got to the point where they were just expecting a Christmas bonus,
Right.
and we had a couple of years where it wasn't great. And
Hmm.
so for us to go to the employees and say, hey, the bonus is only going to be like half what it was this time.
Right.
Of course, they were counting on a twice the
Sure.
bonus.
Right.
So as far as for a business owner, I think the importance of having that profit sharing is transparency,
Hmm.
because now we have to show some of the information to the employees of, hey, this is how we're doing on our net profit. And, actually I did it on, EBITDA and then less whatever the owner expenses are, right? So
Hmm.
if let's say I run my cell phone plan through the company and it's my personal cell phone plan and I'm running it through the company,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna charge the employees for that. So I'll take those small expenses out, right? So things
Right.
that as a business owner we can run through, but
Sure.
realistically they're,
Right.
yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
I'll remove those items, and then I do earnings before taxes and appreciation and depreciation
Right.
is what I do. And what I have found is it's driven employees to look at efficiencies. So you were asking me earlier about how do I incentivize folks to do lean and Six Sigma root cause analysis and things
Hmm.
like that. Um, it's one of those things that can tag onto that to say, well, if we can cut 5 minutes out of this process and that we do this process once a day, and then I start doing it. Okay, so it's $25 a week times
Hmm.
52, and that could go straight to the bottom line,
Sure.
and that affects your profit. And if we have more profit, then obviously the bonuses go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So you mentioned transparency. How transparent are you with your employees about just the general profitability or job costing or things of that nature?
At this point, since we have such a small shop, there's just the three of us.
Hmm.
Uh, I'll share anything with any
Right.
of them. As we grow, there will be, I will show them. I mean, it's not like I'm going to hand them the P&L,
Sure.
or the balance sheet,
Yeah.
Not that they would be able to understand it, but I do share with them because I do the profit sharing. I will be sharing with them, some of the numbers. They have to know it in order to know where they're benchmarked and where they're, what we're targeting for hitting in order to get that profit sharing.
Yeah. Great. And how do you, we did that at our shop. I think it's so fundamentally important to have that transparency. It just builds trust, it builds community and sort of camaraderie, along with the profit sharing. When it comes to job by job costing and looking at that, analyzing that, deciding what to do about jobs that maybe aren't as profitable as you wanted or were a loss, are you doing that? Sounds like you probably are. Are you doing that? How do you do that? When do you review those things? And what do you do about it when the results are not what you want?
So on the first run through, I always anticipate that we're actually going to probably take a loss because I figure I'm already paying for the employees to be here that are doing the programming and setups and stuff like that. So I will take a look at that up front. Just our system that we have, our ERP system actually will calculate that out for us. So we can very easily take a look at that. And so I'll look at first job, but then as we go through and run the jobs in the future, that's one of the things I do share with the employees is I'll actually run the quoted versus actual report on a job, and I'll show it to them and say, hey, look, we made $1,500 on this job, or whatever the case may be. And it's interesting to watch them get excited about, wow, we really did it. We really nailed it. So that's what I'm doing. At this point, we're small enough that I can look at it from job to job. As we grow, then we'll start to put some metrics around that and actually put in a formal process for how we're running those reports. And that'll be a metric that we'll add to our reporting that we do.
Super smart. And so I imagine that means you need to have accurate time tracking, which your employees are bought into and are doing in your ERP.
Yeah. Even I track it as my production manager will come up to me and say, Lori, did you clock into that? I'll be out there packaging stuff and shipping, or doing inspection. And he'll ask me if I clocked in. Oh, dang. So I'll have to go clock in.
Right.
They're better at it than I am.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to build that culture. You mentioned a customer friend that started a defense company. Is that an industry you are looking to serve or are starting to serve a little bit and want to more in the future?
Yes, absolutely. And that's a big one because government contracting, of course, the CMMC, that's the hot button right now.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I did a CMMC Foundations training that through Axion. They're a training company that I work with quite a bit. I've done all of my lead auditor training and AS training and stuff through them. And so I did the Foundations training. And I think that for a small company, the Department of Defense is saying it's going to cost like $250,000 for a company my size to get the CMMC certification. But after doing my training, I'm almost thinking that I can get I think it's called a CCP, and which is a certification to actually be an auditor for CMMC. And that I can build our system. I obviously won't be able to audit it myself, but I can get it to the point like I've done with AS 9100, where I set up the foundations to go in and audit it. And then when the government finally rolls out this whole CMMC certification, I can just work with the third party, right, to come in and do the formal audit. So that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, we've got a government cloud that we're using for all of our IP. We're doing I don't have multi-factor authentication in every process, but I have it in several processes. That's something that I'm setting up. I'm just using the NIST standard right now to go through and check off all the boxes and get everything in place. So that's as soon as I complete my stage 2 AS 9100 audit, that is
it's your next project.
My next project, my next big one.
Right.
my goal is to be as CMMC compliant as I can by the end of this year, by the end of this calendar year. That's my goal.
Okay. And have you gone and gotten a SPURS score yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned NIST, so I'm sure you're referring to 800-171.
Correct.
Which, if people listening aren't familiar, go look it up, read it. If you serve the defense industry in any way, at any chain, any tier, it will be mandatory. And I predict that it will spill over to other industries as well that don't want their sensitive data hacked and out in the dark web and for sale. And so, yeah, it's good for you for taking that seriously. Let's see here. So the folks you have today followed you from your last job, last company. When you do need to start hiring, do you already have things in place where you're working with, workforce development or community colleges or any of that kind of thing, kind of getting ready for when you need more folks?
Yeah, so we've got a few things that are in line. The last phase of our business plan is actually to create a vocational school. So since we had a business plan for a truck driving vocational school, the last phase of our business plan is actually to do the same thing but for machinists. So that's something that we are already starting to put together. I am working with the city on. I've had one intern already. And as the internship programs come through, I will be bringing in more interns. I also have become a part of the Willamette Workforce Partnership, which is a group in this county, in the Yamhill and Polk counties, that are working together to basically just do exactly that, build workforce. So I've partnered with them, have offered to do some AS 9100 training for them as well. So that's my thing, is just being involved in the community and touching as many people as we can. And it's not that we need already skilled folks to come in and run the equipment, because I've got staff that loves to teach, loves to coach. And so if we can get a good student in here, we can teach them what they need to know. I also have partnered with a staffing agency that I've been working with for about 15 years. And if push comes to shove, I can reach out to that staffing agency and then they'll help us out as well.
Yeah. Wow. That is, it's a cool concept to build sort of a training program. So you'd use your own facility basically to do kind of on the job training, as well as like a formal curriculum that you'd develop.
Yeah, we would do a formal curriculum, like have classes in the evenings, and then they would do labs during the day, actually in the facility. So we would be able to, as we go through and do things and have more equipment, obviously this is last phase. So by the time we implement this, I expect that we're going to be in a 25,000 square foot facility, 15 machines, 35 to 50 employees, someplace in that area. And so the whole game plan will be able to bring folks in, and if they're just learning how to push a button or deburr a part or whatever, we'll be able to let them do labs actually on the job.
Right. So we are recording this in July of 2023, and you kind of alluded to the economy. Just being in the industry and hearing from lots of different companies, I see, over the last year or so, maybe longer even, sort of real dichotomy between some shops that are absolutely slammed, just completely buried in contracts and tons of work and can't hire enough and can't get enough machines. And then I see other shops that are, kind of scraping the barrel and saying, hey, I got spindle time open, looking for work. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both, your opinion on why that difference might be happening right now, paired with sort of your outlook for long-term in, precision machining in North America. You obviously must think it's a good enough long-term prospect that you jumped in yourself with both feet. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in general.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, the feasting or famine that we're seeing with machine shops out there, I think it's because the ones that are really thriving probably have long-term agreements with government contracts and in defense, because defense is still just cooking right along.
Hmm.
It's doing very well. And those are the shops that I'm seeing that are doing very well. Here in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of our business is geared on the semiconductor industry and then also the aerospace, because we've got Boeing in the area and we've got Lam Research and Intel all
Hmm.
in these areas.
Right.
And so the shops that we're working with, those folks are the ones that I'm seeing that are struggling
Hmm.
and struggling, dangerously struggling. Some of my customers are other machine shops that would outsource to us some of their overflow work, and they've literally laid off 75% of their staff. I mean,
Whoa.
I've watched them go from 250 employees down to 70, and it's scary. It's super
Hmm.
scary out there. But of course, they played in the high tech world.
Right.
So I think as far as the future is concerned, is we have to look nationally. I do see some stuff coming up for our shop in 2024. I've been working with a customer since, well, even before my days in CNC machining, and I have a fabulous relationship with them, and they're over in Wisconsin, and I
Hmm.
know that they received a sizable government contract, and when they're ready and to go into full production, they're going to be leaning on us for that.
Nice.
So I'm not super concerned about our future in the respect that we do good business. We have good communication. I have a reputation in manufacturing industry for being honest.
Hmm.
Again, one of our core
Yep.
values is honesty, right? I'm going to bring in
Sure.
a core value again, and being honest and having those open lines of communication. I mean, I'm not going to bury my head in the sand if something goes awry in our shop and it's affecting somebody's potential delivery date on their order. I'm not going to go, oh gosh, I hope we get this through. I'm going to call them and
Hmm.
say, hey, listen. And I'm not going to send an email. I'm not going to hide behind a computer. I'll
Right.
pick up the phone and have that old school conversation with somebody and say, hey, I'm going to fall on the sword right now. We had a hiccup and here's what we're doing to fix it. And here's when we're going to have your product to you. And then we'll take a late hit
Sure.
on it, just because that's part of being honest, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I see that we're going to make it because we have those open and honest conversations. I think that there is so many shops out there. There's a ton of shops out there. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But most of the folks that I'm talking to that are small startup shops are somebody was a machinist or a programmer and they go, gosh, I'm really tired of doing this for somebody else. And they go buy a Haas because they can get a Haas, fairly inexpensive,
Hmm.
and they put it in their garage.
Hmm.
And then they start making parts and then they don't realize that, oh gosh, you need to have quality systems in place. You need to have, all of these things that they weren't accustomed to for running a business. That's been one of my big things is all of the things that Oregon requires for employees.
Hmm.
It's like it's like herding cats trying to figure out all of the regulations and what
Sure.
taxes I need to pay and which ones I don't need to pay. And I wish that they would just give you a guidebook that says, here you go. That's not all written in legalese and 800
Sure.
pages thick.
No kidding.
That's been the
Yeah.
biggest challenge.
Yeah. No, I agree about how a lot of shops start up. Some expert in their craft, a machinist, programmer that wants to do it for themselves, and realizing they are kind of getting in over their head in some ways. But it's still a path to great success if they focus on process and treating customers well, and honesty and integrity and good communication and proactive learning and all the things sounds like that you're doing right. So I guess that kind of takes me to one of my last questions, and maybe that we already just answered it. What should all shops of any size be doing right now to ensure their success?
I think the first thing that they need to do, honestly, is, I know it's expensive, get a good ERP system. That to me is huge. I know that, Paul, you've got the Pro Shop, and I've looked at that software. And if I wasn't already engaged with another set of software, I would have absolutely gone Pro Shop. It's a great set of software. And I would just say that to me has been the big thing is get a good ERP system in place, because it's going to help set your work instructions. It's going to help you track your costs. It's going to help with the estimating. Yes, I can read a print. I can look at a CAD file and say, gosh, I think that this is what it's going to take to make it. But to have to calculate that out by hand would be ridiculous. So I just love the fact that I can put all of my, hey, it's going to be 3 ops and 10 minutes on this side, 12 minutes on that, and et cetera. And it calculates it out for me. So that is my advice. And with that, put processes and quality systems, not just inspection, but quality systems in place up front, because that's going to help you keep things in line.
Solid advice I can get behind as well. So good stuff. So Lori, this has been fantastic. If people want to learn more about cutting edge metals, how should they reach out to you?
So you can visit our website at cutting-edge-metals, that's with plural, metals.com, and check out our website. The website is under development, so you're going to see a lot of pretty pictures of sunrises and sunsets, but we will be updating that as we go, but my contact information is there. Or you can send me an email at Lori R, that's LORIR, at cutting-edge-metals.com. And I would love to chit chat with you. Okay.
And I know you are also somewhat active on LinkedIn, so they could always find you there. But we'll make sure your website and email are in the links on the website of Machine Shop Mastery. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I know I love the way you've been thinking about it and the way you started your shop. I think it's super insightful to have done it the way you've done it. I know people will find a ton of value that are maybe not quite as far along as you are now. And so I just really appreciate you sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Yep. Take care.